what you're gonna need is, we've got some charcoal here. This is the kind you guys are gonna use. It's nice and light. That's all I have to say about that. We've got white charcoal pencil. So this one is thicker. It's not a pencil because it's really good just for blocking in big shadows. This is really good for finely detailing our highlights. And I also have an eraser. It kind of looks like charcoal because it's so dirty. But an eraser can be used to pull out some shadows that maybe blended too far. On normal white paper, it could be used to make highlights because it'll erase back down to the white paper and it looks like the highlights coming through. But since we're using a neutral color paper, we're gonna need this for the highlights. So what I do first, I like to start with my shadows. So I look at my picture and I think, where are the darkest spots? So I'm not looking for any shadow at all. I'm looking for my deepest shadows. So his hair is going to be a great example. That's where lots of deep shadows are. But things like this little shadow in his shirt, in between his lips, around his eye, under his arm, wherever you see those, if you can get those in the right spot, it's really going to help it come alive and feel 3D. So what I'm going to do is start with that. I'm going to find that anywhere on this paper, and I'm just going to draw a rough sketch. Again, try not to be so detailed at the beginning steps, because you're going to end up moving things around, blending them in, adding more detail. So if you're taking all your time to place these shadows, you're going to regret it in the end, because these first few steps are just to get lights and darks in the right spots. So you'll notice I'm not drawing every little piece of him, I'm just finding these shadows and putting them in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So far, but there's no glory in the process. So what I did is I looked for all of my highlights and shadows. I used both my drawing and my reference. Never be ashamed to use a reference. I still use references all the time. Using them does not make you a bad artist. Not everyone can recall a realistic eagle from their brain. So I'm looking at my references to find all my shadows, and I just basically line them out. I wasn't taking my time to make it perfect, just putting them in the right spot. So you notice with the cardboard, it's gonna be kind of weird, it's bumpy, but I kind of showed down here, if you rub it in with your finger, it's gonna smooth out just like it would on regular paper. And then you can always go back over it and make it nice and neat. But right now, just did this. So now I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna start spreading this back out so that it's nice and solid. And then I'll show you what comes next. We also can use, where is mine? Okay, so my phone threw a hissy fit. Apparently I'm making it do too much work and it did not save how we got to this point. So let me just walk you through what just happened. One thing I was trying to tell you is that I use a Q-tip as a tool for blending. So when there's little spots like the eyes, little lines that you don't want to blend too far, and you think your finger is going to be a little bit too messy with it, you can use this to help blend those little tiny spots without making too big of a mess. So what I did from before till now is I basically looked for where there are middle values. So what that means is where there are shadows that aren't really deep dark shadows like this, but they're not highlights like this. They're kind of this in between that transitions from dark to light. So this area right here, or under the neck on that arm. The way I did that was I just took my Q-tip or my finger that's already got kind of this charcoal on there, and I just shaded it out. So I looked for where there were blending shadows. If you look here, where is that? Where the shirt transitions to the neck, you'll notice this deep shadow right here. And you'll notice it blends out, so it transitions slowly from shadow to light right here. But if you notice between the shirt and the shadow, it's a really hard line, so it goes straight from dark to light. There's no slow transition. So that's helpful to notice. When you show that on your paper, it'll really show a transition from different textures. So when I did mine here, you'll notice I shaded it out. I just went from this dark shadow and I used my already kind of dirty Q-tip and I shaded it out into the neck. But I didn't really do any shading on this side because I want to show that that's a shirt. There's no transition there, and I'm not going to see it here, so I'm not going to draw a transition between dark to light here. So basically what I did is I went through and I found all those little transitions, I found all that little middle value shading, and I just came in and I shaded it out. Anywhere that I saw it, I was doing this little bit of shading. Fortunately you couldn't see it, but now you see the end product. So now what I'm going to do, it's looking pretty good, it's coming to life. I'm starting to actually see the form of this thing. It doesn't look flat anymore, which is super good. Now what I need to do is come through and just define these a bit more. So still, I'm not going to jump right into the highlights. I don't know if this part got recorded. One part that I love about doing charcoal is adding that highlight. When I add this highlight in, it really just brings it to life. It makes it look 3D. But if you add the highlight in too early, so if I added the white in now, I still need to do more with my shadows. And if that blends into the white, it's going to make it dirty and I have to come back over the white again to make it nice and bright. So it's really going to save you time if you just save the white till almost the very, very last. So now, I mean, I'm getting very, very close, but I still want to come through, clean up some of these, still blend some of this middle value in. And still come back through then and define my edges. So there's some spots that I blurred out because they needed to be blended, but then they still have a pretty hard edge. So I want to come back through and redraw those edges. So you guys have this bigger charcoal, but we also have the option of, and I don't have too many of them in the classroom, but these charcoal pencils. So I don't know if you can see that. Charcoal pencils. The same thing as my white pencil here. It's just for defining more solid areas, more focused areas instead of blending a whole space. So I'm going to go ahead and use this and my other charcoal. I'm going to use my eraser to bring back out parts that maybe I think it blended too far, so I might erase to give it a harder edge. I'm basically going to come just through right now and just define those spots. Really try to match the value. And that's really going to bring it out and make it real life. So I'm going to do that now. Then we can come to our highlights, which is our very end.
Yeah.
So now we're at the point where we can start adding some highlights and pulling out some highlights with our eraser. So what that means is I'm going to take my little eraser here, the really, really dirty one, and I'm just going to come through and notice wherever my highlights are. I'm going to start pulling that out, making it more of a clean line so that I can come back in with my white charcoal and add just on the brightest highlights. So this is going to be really very, very, very bright when I put it against this neutral background. So I'm only going to look for those parts that have really, really bright spots. Everything else I'm going to pull out with my eraser. So basically at this point, once I start doing that, it's just going to be a back and forth. So I might pull some out and then I might notice that you know, this line isn't dark enough and I had to go back in with my charcoal and make that a little bit darker. And okay, so maybe this middle value needs to be extended farther so it gets closer to my highlight. I mean, it's really, at this point, just kind of cleaning it up, getting it more defined. You're starting to be more focused with your pencil and not just kind of throwing the value down. Basically, we're reaching the end here, which is great. So, not going to be one go. With any shading, it's never going to be the first time you put it down. It's going to be good. It's just going to be layers and layers, going back through, erasing things, drawing them back in, making things harder, making things smoother. So it's kind of up to your discretion. So I'm going to do that. We'll show you how that goes, and then I will show you lastly what you should be looking for your background. is shading with charcoal and white charcoal. All that's left now is background, so if you want to do something fun for your background, absolutely go for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shade my background so that it basically complements and contrasts what I have going on here. So if you notice, even in this picture, there's things that contrast that make the picture pop out. So contrast means they are looking very different. So either light and dark, big and small, very big, noticeable difference. So if you notice on his hair, right here, the background is white, which makes the black hair pop out. Whereas over here, with this white feathers, the background is black to make the white pop out. If you do the same color background, it's just gonna blend in with the background. I want this guy to pop out. I worked hard on this, so I don't want him to be hiding. So, like I've already started over here, I made my background dark to pop out this. I'm gonna make this light, and I'm basically just gonna shade all the rest of it so that it has, so it blends together and complements what's going on here. And after that, I'm finished. In order to seal charcoal, just gotta spray it with, there's either finishing spray, which can be kind of expensive, so you can just use hairspray, which makes it solid. And that's it. That's shading with charcoal. So I'm gonna finish this off.